Leadership is built over time, through vision, perseverance, and commitment to giving back. That's the focus of our team's Leadership Series, a monthly spotlight on some of Portland's business and real estate leaders. In our next video, we'll feature an extended interview with Joe Weston, a Portland native and icon of the Portland commercial real estate community, whose lifetime of generosity and philanthropy has a profound impact on our community and the lives of everyone he's touched. We invite you to join us.
Well, Joe, it would be really good to hear how you started.
I was born here in Portland. I was born into a very, very poor family. My father was a commission salesman, and my mother, while she was a registered nurse, she stayed home. I have only one brother left. He's in a care facility in Seattle. When I was young, I carried the Journal newspaper, and I worked as a soda jerk at a pharmacy, the corner of 28th and Gleason. Mm-hmm. And the man that owned that was Sam Bates. And Sam kind of took me under his wing, and he bought a duplex. And the people would come in and they would pay cash, and he'd have me write them a receipt. And I said, this is fantastic. They give you your money, and you still got the building, and they're going to come in every month. He wanted me to go to pharmacy school, so I went down to Oregon State, and I still had an interest in real estate. So I dropped out of that, and I came back here, and I found a duplex that I could buy on contract. We didn't have trust deeds in those days. And the woman said she'd take $2,500 down. I had saved only $2,000, but I was working before school at Fran's Bakery and after school at Fran's Bakery. Mm-hmm. Mr. Franz, Joe Franz, he's now deceased. He had a son by the name of Joe, and we were the best of partners. We palled around. He'd be at my house, I'd be at his house. Joe and Maxine, that was his wife. And they had an old car, and they were driving down the street, the highway, and a guy was going to pass him and didn't think he had room, so he backed into him. And at that time, the gas tanks were in the back. Mm-hmm. And the car caught fire, and Joe Jr. died. But they kind of kept always interested in what I was doing, everything. So when I found this duplex, I only had $2,000. She wanted $2,500. So I went down to the bakery, and because I worked in the basement, because I really shouldn't have been working at all. And I worked with Engelbert Franz, and he was one of the two brothers that found Fran's Bakery. Mm-hmm. And Engelbert, I just remember, he chewed snuff all the time. And he couldn't speak very good English, but we got along. So I went upstairs and talked to Joe, and I said, I have something I'd like to discuss with you. And I said, Joe, I have a duplex that I can buy with $2,500 down, and all I've got is $2,000. Would you loan me $500? And Jesus, he stood up and wrote the check and gave it to me, and he says, it's not a loan. You keep it, Joe. Just keep it. It's your money. I said, no, that's not what I asked for. I asked for a loan, and I'm happy that you saw fit. I'll see that you're paid back within 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. So in 8 weeks, I went in, had an envelope, and had 5 $100 bills. And he says, no, I told you didn't have to. I says, no, I said I'd pay you back. So that's how I got interested in real estate. We have made a lot of good buys, and we built a lot of apartments. Weston Investment has basically 4 divisions. The first division is American Property Management. We only manage our own property. We don't manage for anybody else. But in our portfolio, we have about 2,300 apartments. We have a division known as U-Store Self-Storage. We have 36 locations from the Seattle to the California border, which represents 21,000 individual units. And then we have the commercial part, and that is dealing with all the downtown area. And I have a very loyal workforce. They've been with me. Many people have retired. They were smarter than I was, I'll tell you. And they were with me 40 years. In fact, my chauffeur, because I can't drive much anymore, and he's been with me 42 years. He was homeless. I hired him off the street as a homeless person. And I gave him a house out on a lake. And he's very, very loyal to me, as is George Passador, very loyal to me. So that's basically how we got going and what we have. When I buy a property, if I get it paid for, I will never, never encumber it. So we have no real estate debt at all, none whatsoever. So I get calls. I got the call on the Big Pink. And that's when George said, no, you're not buying any more real estate. You can do your other things you like to do, but you're not going to buy any more real estate, or I'm not going to be your right-hand man. So I said, no, I can't afford to lose you. Well, the guy that bought it, he's now kind of in trouble because he borrowed money to pay for the damn thing. So he's approached me, so I'm going to approach George and see if I can possibly just buy an interest in it, because that's not going to come back for some time. It'll be 10 years before it comes back. The market is bad.
That is outstanding. So my recollection was that you had the number of units you shared, and you've sold some of those off. Okay.
I haven't sold them off. I've given them to my foundation.
Okay.
It's the OCF Joseph D. Weston Public Foundation.
Yeah.
When I decided that everything would go to charity, I approach OCF and I say, you're a public foundation. I want a foundation that I can ride with the public, because you can give as much as you want. If you're a regular foundation, you've got to give a percentage of the asset. So they met with me, and our attorneys all met, and they said, yeah, you can form a public foundation, but we'll have to have control of it. So there's 9 trustees. They get to appoint 5 of them, and I get to appoint 4 of them. But they give me the courtesy that when one of their trustees term out, they make a list of who they want to pick as a public member. And then I get to pick usually, and they'll always honor. They've been very good. In fact, John Gray called me one day and he said, I'd like to come in and talk to you. I didn't know John very well. And I said, that's fine. And I said, what is it going to be in reference to, John? Well, it's your foundation. I want to know how you do that, what you're doing. So I said, we're having a foundation meeting. It was in December, and we're going to give away a little over $30 million to all these charities and scholarships and things like that. So he came in and he was very impressed and very nice, and he did it. And there's been 2 or 3 other people that have done it. So it's kind of a division of OCF now.
George is your designated
trustee and secretary treasurer of the foundation, and he's also my co-executive on my estate, along with my 2 adult children.
The intersection that we've had, you and I, has been in many, many lease transactions predominantly over the years, and you definitely have assembled a great team. But I think you had, at some point, over 2 million square feet of office buildings.
We have 86 commercial properties. 86. The commercial division is made up of 86 property, made up of mostly office.
Mostly office.
But we have shopping malls, not malls, strip centers, and we have industrial parks, and we have all of this used store. We have 168 full-time employees.
168 now.
Full-time.
Outstanding. Yeah, one of the things that this morning, I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but in the book of Luke wrote it, to whom much has been given, much is expected.
Well, that's true.
And
we give away about 400 charity nonprofits, 501c3s. Then we have a matching tuition grant to all the grade schools and Catholic grade schools and most of the college. And that's a dollar for dollar grant. And they end up getting a check for, usually $500,000 or so. Yeah, we give away basically most of our cash. But when I die, all of the property go to the foundation. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that very, very few people are aware that of the givers in the state of Oregon, you rank up near the top, both corporately and otherwise.
My wages I take from the company is the highest wage that any of my officers get, plus 15%.
Yeah.
So when they get a raise, I get a raise, but I tie it to that.
Outstanding.
It is.
Outstanding.
And right now, a lot of these charities are having a real difficult time. and it's sad. So the money we give away every December, they give me a presidential allotment of $25,000. And so when a charity calls me and they just are up against it, I can write a check and not have the permission of the rest of the trustees. And the following annual meeting, they will verify and okay what I spent out of my presidential bucket.
Outstanding, outstanding. So Joe, to flip just a little bit, one of the things you and I have discussed in our phone calls has just been what's happening in the marketplace. And I've heard from the people you have on the ground that your occupancy is up in the suburban areas, but in the central areas, maybe not so much so. Do you want to just give kind of an overview as to where you see some bleeding and where you see some green shoots?
Our highest vacancy is, of course, in offices. And what's happened is when COVID hit, of course, I told everybody to stay home, work from their home. Well, they decided if I have my computer at home, I can work from home. I have no reason to go into the office. So he's permitting that. And so that's a real problem. And the next problem we have is our cost of doing business in Portland is higher now than New York. We were right behind New York, but now we exceed New York. And the mayor just doesn't realize that there's problems. I have the only high-rise crane in the sky in downtown Portland now, and that's at 14th and Northwest Shaver.
Right.
I'm building another mini storage there, and it'll have a little over 1,000 units. And now I think the mayor means well. Like he thought that they brought James Market into Portland, that would bring in 70 vendors, be very similar to Pike Market thing. And he said, "Can you help us out?" So I gave him a building, 622 Southeast Alder. I just gave him the building. I said, "You can have it." I gave it to James Market, and they're remodeling it now. And hopefully that's going to be a good thing. But it was kind of an interesting building. That's where Fred Meyer started. And then it went to a Payless drug, then I went to a Rite Aid drug, and then it went broke. So it was vacant. But we would have filled it eventually. But I told the mayor, I said, "If you think that's the catalyst you need and you want the building, I'll deed it to you. Or I'll deed it to the James people." And they're remodeling. It's going to be 4 stories high. And we have just major problems in Portland with getting building permits and things like that. When I was first got started building apartments and office building, I can go down to the city hall. It was on the 4th floor at the south end, and submit my plans. And maybe in a day or two, a guy would call and says, "Can you come down? I want to review the plans with you." And they go through it, and he'd sign off. I remember the engineer, at that time, I'm sure he's dead now, was a drunk. And he'd come out and say, "Well, you need an engineering seal. You have one?" "Yeah, there it is. It's all been engineered." "That's good enough for me." He's my wife. He just signed it. He wouldn't even look at it. And then you'd go over to the fire department, they'd sign off and planning, and that was it. But that's not true now. We do a lot of tenant improvements. People rent a suite, and they want the conference room differently, or the private office is smaller, they want to do something. And we have to get what's called a TI, tenant improvement. So the mayor called one day and says, "Would you be willing to join that group? You get the permit easier." Well, they backed off that now. And it takes a long time to get a very simple permit. You're not changing any structural walls. You're not changing the outside of the building. But they're just protecting their job. Now, my general contractor on this building, I'm building in downtown, is Deacon Construction. And that city inspector would come every day. Yeah, he had nothing else to do. Finally, Deacon got mad, and he went down to the city and said, "You have a right to come out when we're done, inspect it, and if it's built per print, then you give a certificate of occupancy." He has no business coming and telling, "Well, you might want to think about doing it this way or that way." Well, the poor guy had nothing to do all day long. And they aren't laying him off, you know. So it's something,
So to that end, it is very fascinating. So it kind of pivots to another really good question, and that is, what you've just identified is one of the big issues that a lot of people are having, because there's a huge cost related to the permits, related to
business tax you got to pay.
The business
and
tax.
You'll find if you take your water bill now, there's more expense on that water bill than the cost of the water. It's bond. The retirement for the police are on the water bill. The retirement for the fire department's on the water bill, because they can pass that without getting a vote of the people. If they want to do certain things, they got to get a vote of the people. Good example is our governor. She wanted to put through that increase, and they got a petition. No, you got to do it in the general election in November.
For the
well, she now wants to move it to May, because she'll lose, because it's a hot issue. I don't know. It's one of those things. You live with it.
Yeah, so you do live with it, but it's unique to the decades. The decades that you have been in business.
I think one of our biggest problems we have right now is the national publicity we're getting. They mention Portland, Oregon all the time. And there are a lot of companies that are doing it and trying to hire, and they can't hire any women. The women don't feel safe in downtown Portland. I'm happy with the position. I'm happy with the offered compensation, but I'm not going to go work downtown. I'm afraid to be downtown on the street. It's that simple. And
your people in the office are reporting back that are responsible for filling any in the vacancies that you have. So you've got security issues. Do they bring up any other issues that the mayor and others should be aware of?
Now working 4 days a week and get the same amount. I think a 4-day work week is coming, because they always take either Friday off or Monday off, so they can add it together. And then they have all these national holidays. I don't know. I suppose Trump is going to name a national holiday after him soon. There'll be another one.
Well, it is an interesting time. So, if you were in looking back at your career, and some people say there's a void of leadership in our city because there are so many disparate interests. Looking back on your career, if you could bring back maybe one of the dynamics that once existed related to leadership, what would that look like?
Well, I wouldn't have departments in conflict with each other. I don't know if most people know this, but I'm the primary lender of the Pearl District, which is known as the Pearl District. And I did that all through George's Bank. And when they wanted to build a building, I'm 63% of the ownership. They had what was known originally the Hoyt Street investors. Well, Homer Williams got himself buying, which he always does. So he came to me and he said, "Would you buy me out?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, what we're going to do is tell the other investors that's going to happen. Well, most of them, they wanted out too. So only one investor stayed, and then we formed Hoyt Street Properties. We now operate another Hoyt Street property. And it's just very, very difficult. And what we had to do to get a permit to build the building, they have a new rule now that if you put up a building of certain size, you got to have public art. So they're making me put in a rose on one section of the property, and that's costing me a little over $200,000. And they said, "You got to get a sign permit." Well, I said, "That's fine." I thought, well, that's going to be easy enough. Well, I get down to the city, or my architect gets down there to the city, and they say, "Oh, no, you're not going to do this under a sign permit. You're going to do it under a building permit." And the fun started. Even though on the condition of getting it what I wanted to do, like another thing I had to do is I had to put a 36,000-gallon tank under the first floor, and that's for fire protection. It's a new deal, see? And that's damned expensive. So a building that I thought was going to cost me about $32 million will exceed $50 million. But I was in it going, and that'll be the last building I'm going to build. With the disease I have, and I can give you a list of it. The doctor prepared everything for me. He said, here's what the stages you're going to go through. And the last stage is you have trouble breathing and eating. And that's where I am now. And he said, you'll only have about 4 or 5 months after that. Well, I'm in my 6th month now. But I have to eat everything with applesauce to get it down my throat. Take all my pills with applesauce. And I have a caretaker. He comes in the morning at 6:30, gets me up, showers me, prepares my breakfast, gets my medicine, then he comes back at night.
You've been doing this longer than I've been alive, and this is my 3rd year in the business. And I wanted to ask, was there a decade that was the easiest to acquire, lease up buildings, and actually just make money as a property owner? And what caused that to change? Like, what would we change now to go back?
For years, I was under borrowed all my money from Oregon Mutual Savings and Loan, not Oregon Mutual Bank, but there was an Oregon Mutual Savings and Loan. And they just treated me wonderful. They said, we like you because usually you don't even call for your first draw until the building's 50% down, or normally with a developer, they try to overdraw right away. And then they merged, and First Interstate took them over. And Oregon Mutual assigned George Pastor to me. I was his customer. And so when they wanted to do the Pearl, I called George. I said, do you want a chance to loan on that? Yes, we'll do it if you'll personally guarantee the loan. So all those buildings have been built with my personal guarantee. And we've only had just one difficulty, and that was on the recession when the COVID-19 hit. We weren't selling anything, and they considered one loan to be overloaned on. So George called me. He said, well, we got to do something. Either you got to pay it off or do something. I said, well, George, what do you want me to do? Well, we want it so it's considered by the Internal Revenue Service to be a safe loan. And it'll take $20 million. I said, okay, I'll send you $20 million. That was our agreement. And other than that, they've just been very easy to deal with. Very easy to deal with.
Wow.
It's a nice area, but it's gone to pot too, because they're putting all these units in where people go and sleep at night, and then they throw them out in the daytime at 8:30 in the morning, and they just start begging money and things like that. Like there was one guy the other day, I had a stop sign, and he wanted some money and all. Well, the smallest bill I had was $10. I said, $10. And I said, I don't want you to buy liquor, and I don't want you to go ahead and sell it either. A lot of times they'll take that money and then they'll buy drugs. They can capitalize and make more money. You know?
Right.
Yeah. One of those things.
So, Joe, you said 10 years before things turn.
I think so.
And what do you think is going to precipitate the in-migration and get us out of that hybrid workforce? Because the other partner I have, he and I always disagree. He's more optimistic, and I get a little pessimistic at times.
I think it's just going to take that long. And the younger generation realize they can't be on drugs, and they've got to get a job. There's jobs out there, and there's people asking for work.
Yeah.
But then they find out they're druggies, and they got to clean up this homeless area. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
And the cost of doing business in Portland is quite high. Had I known I was going to have all these extra charges on this building that I'm building now, I wouldn't have built the damn thing. Now I have another situation going where I'm trying to help them out, and that was with this Albina Vision Group. And I own the Beacons warehouse. I bought it years ago, and it was built as a warehouse and everything.
Yeah.
So they came up with the idea that they wanted to buy that, and they were going to convert that to apartments. I says, you can't convert an apartment. There's no windows in it. There's no plumbing in it. And the only plumbing is one toilet on the first floor where Beacons had their office. I said, the cost to convert that will be horrendous. Well, the city loves that idea because then they get all these permit change of use.
Yeah.
So I wrote to them finally, I said, you know, you can buy it. I'm willing to sell it to you. And I'm willing to give you a good buy on it even. Yeah. And that was one thing why I went on the other side of Broadway to build a building I have under construction. Well, they're still bugging me. They said, no, we think we can convert that. Now, we do have some buildings that could be converted into housing. When I bought the old medical arts building,
1020,
there's small offices, and every office had a sink in it. So there's plumbing running around in the building. It could be converted. And the city has made some concession. They're waiving some of the fees. But I'm not doing that. I'm just not going to do it.
I told you I'd do that. Yeah. But no, I mean, truly, I think the panacea that they had, I mean, this concept of ABT, they don't know what they don't know. It's fascinating to me because everybody had this idea that you could convert those. But I'd shared with you, I looked at the 220 Davis, the old Northwest Natural, and a big pension group. And this when things were booming. Couldn't make it even pencil back then when construction costs were still 20, 30%. So you've got 1020 Taylor. Do you have others that you would identify as logical?
My people have identified them, but I'm out of the building business.
Yeah.
Because I won't be around that much longer, and I want and George and we've discussed everything because he'll want to sell most of the property over a period of time. I said, don't panic. Because you're going to get a lot of calls on the smaller apartment houses. You know, he said, and I said, they're doing well. We're doing fine on them. And I said, just be cautious. But he says, no foundation has a real estate company. They invest in maybe a REIT or something like that, but they don't have a real estate company. So I said, well, you're boss. I'm 6 feet in the ground. I can do it. You know, in fact, my tombstone is already made. I had it made and gives a date of birth, date of thing, and it says, I made many a good real estate investment in my day, but I sure went in the hole on this one.
I love it. Because that is Joe Weston with the yellow beetle that is so famous amongst all the people in downtown.
Well, because of my background, I'm very conservative. I come to my man cave in the morning. Then I come over here and get my emails and do whatever has to be signed. And then I go to lunch and I have lunch down here at the Burger King. I own that property there. When the Lloyd Center decided they were going to tear down the Lloyd Center, I called the owners and he took my call and I said, I don't rent from you, but I own a lot of property. I own the Burger King property and I own 3 or 4 blocks in there. I said, I don't want my property zoned residential. They said, no, we're only getting what we have title to. It won't affect you at all. So I'm surprised, but there's been another mall out in Washington County they're tearing down too. People just are not shopping the way they are. We're going through something, and I think we're coming into some more tough times than what it is now. I think we're going to come into times that will equal the Depression, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So you see some headwinds coming. And
unless somebody makes some correction. And you can't blame the public, you know. If the guy is ill because he's sick or mentally, I want to help him. We'll help anybody that needs help if they want to help themselves. Like I put up $1 million for that old jail, help buy that jail out there. And they're doing things. You can't go out there and just get in. You got to go out there.
Jordan and Kehoe?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to promise that you're going to say, and we're going to control you, and we're going to break you. And they have a very successful rate, a percentage rate.
Yeah. Now, I heard they were having issues with Multnomah County operational funding.
They're getting into the act, too.
Yeah.
These care centers, they're in competition with each other now.
Yeah.
To help the homeless.
If you were giving advice to a younger investor or developer, would you recommend them buying or building in Portland? Portland right now? Do you think there's opportunity?
If they're young enough and they have the financial ability to pay the deficit. That's why I want to approach George again. And because this guy that bought Big Pink, he realized he may have made a mistake because it's in such a bad area. And I'm willing to buy a percentage of it, and I'll share in the loss based on the percentage. Because it's going to come back. It's a beautiful building. But we got to get rid of that, all of the club across the street, Gracie's or what they call the one.
Yeah,
Whatever.
all the dance clubs and garbage down there. Yeah. That is, in my mind, the stronghold in the city.
Yeah.
It needs to be.
It's the most beautiful building in the city. It's the tallest, and it looks nice.
Yeah.
They correctly refer to it as Big Pink, which it is. But you can't have all those strip clubs all around there.
But what's interesting, Joe, if you remember, we had Bologna Joe's over on the east side.
Yeah.
And so we, David Gold and I, and Burnside Community Council tried to move them into an access center, so they were inside. And it was a different form of homelessness back in that day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a story. I'll tell you a failure. I decided that I would try to help out Sid Leo. You know who Sid Leo was? He owned the Jade West.
Oh, remember that? Yeah.
So I said, I'll help you. I'll buy the Jade West, so you can keep your employees employed. And I trust that I'll assign somebody to help you on your buying and everything like that. So I went to George at the bank and I said, I want to borrow X number of dollars. He said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm buying the Jade West. He said, what the hell are you buying a restaurant for? And he said, we'll give you the money. We're not going to say we won't. But I want you to write down on a piece of paper how much you're willing to lose before you close it. So I wrote it down. Well, it only took about 6 months. And I said, George, get the piece of paper out. Yeah, hell, I'm above that. So we closed the damn thing. The restaurant business is a tough business.
That was up near Portland State, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so you that was back before you were born.
It was Sid Leo, and it was very successful restaurant.
Yes. It was.
Anytime anything went on at the auditorium, he was packed.
It was actually like, it had the reputation of today's Jake's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Jake's at its highest, but no,
Well, just like that's the reason that Sheridan went out of business.
Yeah.
When he was still living, it was fine. And then he died, and the 2 girls took it over. And one girl had a husband that he knew how to run a produce thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing all right. Well, he died. So the girls took it over themselves, and they went broke. God, you go in there in the last few months, there was nothing in the shelf. Absolutely nothing on the shelf. And that used to be a real thing. And they borrowed on the property, an investor, and he's foreclosing now.
Yeah.
So, and then they were going to go out to the airport and put something in. They asked everybody for money. They said, "Oh, we can turn it around." No one wanted to invest with them.
Yeah.
So I was touring last week with the local nonprofit looking for office space downtown, and predominantly female workforce. And they actually were commenting about how clean and safe it felt, which is a dramatic shift from the last few years.
Yeah.
But I commented that the streets are still empty and we still have vacancy. Your note about it being so expensive to do business here, what do you think the city could do to incentivize businesses to grow or to come here from out of state?
Yeah, national companies to come to Port Authority. They're not coming. That's what's wrong with Big Pink. You could cut the rent way down and get it full. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm.
But if a corporate officer comes out, they're not going to be happy with it. See, we're not doing business out of here. That's for sure. Yeah.
And why do you think that is?
They just don't like it. I'll give you an example on one of the buildings we had. It was a national tenant, and we're fighting with the homeless, sleeping in the thing and everything. And they had their corporate people come out and they said, "You're getting out of the lease. We'll pay the lease off." And they negotiated and paid it off. There's another major problem. And I called to the attention of the city, but the city is kind of aloof. They're putting up all these gates now, all these gates. Well, if it's a multi-story building, they got to get out, and they have a lock on them. Now, all the gates we put up, we use panic hardware, so they can reach around and open the thing up. But if they run down the stair now, you're going to have all these bodies burned to death because they couldn't get out of the building. Yeah, and the city says, oh, I don't think that's a risk. And I said, it is a risk. If you're in a fire, you want out. And you run down, and there's a gate, you can't open it. So we did 2 or 3 of them, and they came out and looked at it and said, well, you're right. You can reach around and get the panic hardware and open it. You can get out of it anyway.
Yeah. But again, it's just, it's an increasing cost of doing business in the city of Portland that you don't necessarily have elsewhere.
I'm just from the old school, and I was building, and went down there and got a permit 3 to 5 days. We went out and built the building, and then had the inspector. And sometimes they gave the inspectors authority. You had a new carpenter on the job. The line was snapped, and the 2x4s would go in the center of the line. He put it to one side or the other. And the building inspector picked it up. I said, well, let's ask you, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Is it a safety issue? No, not a safety. Aisle is still big enough. I said, then what the hell are we arguing about? And that'd be the end of it. Yeah. But not anymore. Oh, no, we got to appeal it. And you pay all the appeal fees and all that.
How are your properties doing in the suburbs versus downtown?
No, you'll find that the only properties that they won't go into, they don't want to go into, is properties outside of Washington and Clackamas. But most of our move-outs going out of the core area are going into Washington County and Clackamas County. Now, Vancouver's a bitch again. They used to be, we have a property over in Vancouver, office buildings, but they're now just like the city of Portland. It's been an interesting ride.
It has been. It goes fast, doesn't it?
Were you a student of mine?
No.
Well, I used to always leave the last class of the course. And I said, I want you to get in your language, different thing. Now, you gave me some questions here.
Yeah.
And you used the word deal. You used the word commission.
Yeah.
Now, in commercial leasing, you can use the word lease or leasee. That's okay.
Right.
But in residential, when you use the term tenant and landlord, it's an English custom where the tenant was at the thumb of the landlord. So if you look at all our forms, we refer to the tenant as a resident, and we refer to the owner of the building as the fee title holder. We don't use that landlord tenant. And we don't use the word deal, we use transaction, because we're not dealing in a commodity. We're dealing in a professional service.
Yeah.
See, when I started my school, you didn't have to have a license. You went under a temporary permit. The requirement was you had to work under a licensed broker.
Interesting.
And so I started a school, and the brokers just liked it real well, and they sent me all their people.
Yeah.
And then when the state put the continuing education, the 9 hours, started out with 9 hours. The state says, would you be willing to travel the state on weekends and offer the continuing education? I said, yeah, I'll do that. So just every other Saturday I was in Pendleton, or I was all over Medford like that. So we could certify these people so they could renew their license. Yeah. But things have changed in real estate. The women have taken over the residential, and they're now making real inroads on the commercial.
Yeah. Oh, without question.
Where it used to be, a woman would never be in commercial. Yeah, it was unheard of.
Right.
Some of the most successful ones are women.
So, Joe, if you looking back on your life, your career mostly, because it's applicable to others, but would you have, in the midst of everything that you experienced, would there be, and I'm not calling it a regret, but is there anything you may have done differently?
Well, I should have retired when I was 65. The reason why I sold my school, and I sold the school in 79, we adopted 2 children. And we got them right from the hospital. Dr. Harple made an arrangement. And we got to go up to the hospital and see them. And the hospital would cover their name tag, so we didn't know their last name or who they were. And then what the problem was, I was working all day and 3 nights a week teaching. And I thought, this isn't fair to the children. So we went ahead. My son is now 50 years old, and my daughter is 48 years old. My son has, my daughter has 1 grandchild, and they named him Weston. Weston Mork is his name.
Oh, I love
His name Weston still in there. They wouldn't tell me what they were going to name him. They said, you'll find out. And that's what it was.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So you would have retired, but in retirement, Joe, somebody said of me, and I'm not like you, because you really poured out even at levels that I can't imagine. I couldn't retire. And so the question is, what would you have done had you retired in your mind?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's tough.
In fact, I just agreed with my employees here. I won't pick up the mail from the post office box anymore on Saturday. I used to always pick up the mail open. That's the only mail I opened was on Saturday. And then I'd have a lot of notes. See, Joe, what's this? Why are we using this vendor? Why can't we take care of this and that? So they were kind of getting after me. So I agreed last week that I won't process any of the mail. But if anything important, I want to know what's going on. Because we just settled a lawsuit where we have a bunch of 608 apartments. 608 was a federal thing that's when Binford and Middleman and all that built those 608. You can identify them all over. And we had a chance to buy from the Hill Military School a 42 unit. We call it Mount Tabor Court. I still have it. And Sun Life had the loan on it. And so I went down to Sun Life. I bought this apartment here. The lender just wanted to introduce myself. They said, you bought more than the apartment. And I said, what are you talking about? We had a replacement reserve on 608. They have over $200,000. That's your money too now. That really gave
That's a nice surprise.
Yeah.
That enabled you to pay off a portion of the permit down in the Pearl.
Well, I paid over $1 million thus far on development that building. Over $1 million in permit fee.
Yeah. So
we're meeting today at 2:00. We meet at the job shack with Deacon, and they go through all the change orders. And when I got sick and didn't think that I'd probably be around when the building was being finished, we went ahead and I hired a man that's retired. Terry Lurkey is his name. Maybe you've heard of him before. And he's representing me at the meetings. I go to the meetings.
Good.
But he's watching all the change orders and what I would normally have done.
Yeah. Well, Beacon's a good group.
Yeah. And George is always there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be there today, 2:00.
That's outstanding. Thank you so much for taking the time. And by the way, you sound good. Joe, first of all, I wrote a note and I didn't deliver it in person to Pete Mark, but I think so highly of all the individuals that enabled people like me to enjoy a career that ultimately, has been a blessing to so many people. And so out of all the successes and the riches of that which you have built along with your big team, we're just grateful that we have been able to do a tremendous amount of business with your team, highly respected team. And just thank you for your leadership in the city, and thank you for all the people that you've supported. I mean, if you really were to break it down and just look at the impact across our city, it's astounding. And so that was a letter I wrote to Pete. That's the personal message I'm delivering to you, that it hasn't gone unnoticed, and I'm representing a lot of people in saying that. So thank you, and Godspeed.